All right, we are live, Robin. So, welcome everybody. This is Steve Gerten over here at Agent Legend, CEO here. I have here today. We're diving into for those of you who are actively subscribed with Agent Legend and are using the platform. You've seen a big shift to the data side of things and understanding and having more context behind your leads. And so we want to go into here today. I want to bring Robin in. She is the mastermind behind what we are doing and what we are building and delivering for our existing users in real estate and mortgage verticals. And so, Robin, I'll turn it over to you just to introduce yourself really quickly. You've kind of been behind the scenes up until today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the company that you guys are working for, how our relationship works. And then we'll dive into the topic today, which is all about why context is king today more than ever. What that actually means in your business, current, future state. And then we'll wrap it up here in under 45 minutes and get people on with their day. So Robin, I will turn it over to you for a brief introduction and let's get started.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all. I'm Robin Spencer. I lead all of our business side of Faraday, which really specializes in consumer context. So you can think of that as the data that makes it possible to have very personalized customer journeys. And we love our partnership with Agent Legend, mostly because we are not the experts in real estate or mortgage. So we can bring our expertise in how data works, how context works, to really allow all of you guys to get the most value out of it. So I'm psyched to dig into that today.
Yeah. So what we've been working on and delivering for our users is that shift of focus of with our information about our leads. It's generally first party data driven. So I want to unpack that a little bit with you, Robin, around what that actually means. You know, we have a real estate business as well, so we're actively transacting in our own right. And what we generally have information on is going to be name, phone, email, maybe lead source. Then you get all of the information from what your CRM may provide you, whether you're using a CRM or not. And so that might be clicks on those emails, property views if you're on the real estate side, right? If they're actively engaging in your on your website. And that information is what we have historically used our time and money, our resources to go after. And so given the costs of everything are going up in our world, we're a messaging platform in our own right. And so the cost of messaging is continuing to increase. And so we know that if we're just deploying messaging at random, we get really poor response rates. Our usage goes up as our database grows. And consumers now more than ever are just smarter in general, and they're getting bombarded with marketing messages from everywhere. And so tell us a little bit more about what you guys now bring to the table, what this context actually means in our day-to-day, and why it even, I mean, most of us are like, well, why does this matter? How do I make more money? Tell us a little bit more about, again, the work that we're doing here.
That's what I love as a question the most of, I think at the end of the day, what you are trying to do is make more money or kind of add more value to your clients. Mm-hmm. And so I think of what we do as really one ingredient to make that possible. So you just named a ton of data that somebody has about potential leads. And so my first question would be, sometimes first party data is enough. You get all this information. What are you going to do with it? And that, however somebody answers that question, becomes the kind of where we can slot in or not. And to your point, a lot of people's answer is like, well, I'm not sure if I do anything that differently. I basically have a lot of data and then I kind of shoot in the dark. And so if you're shooting in the dark at any point, or if you're doing it off of gut instinct or just which one came in the first time or kind of in whichever order, those are the moments that I would say pause and ask, if I had more context about this individual, I knew what their family looked like. I knew if they had recently moved. I knew how big their property was. I knew when they last got a mortgage. If I had that context, would I do something differently? And then we usually shut up and just listen to that answer, because depending on that answer, it allows us to know, should you have more context about it? And I think that's what Agent Legend has done such a nice job of, right? Which is you have all that underlying data. And there's a lot of different ways, once you understand that core question, for how you actually activate it. And we can get into all those different ways, but I think it really starts with that question. Would you do something different if you had X-ray vision into, if you could really understand somebody beyond just their lead, they visited my site? That's what we're in the business of.
Yeah, I love it. So a lot of our users are like, and even some, in my own business too, right? Is maybe not, maybe I wouldn't. I'm just going to keep calling these leads. I want to keep messaging them. I want to get to a yes as soon as we possibly can with what that entails. So I want to go through a few things. So just kind of to lay the framework here. For those of you that are here live, please jump into the chat, ask questions, because some of this stuff is exactly right. Like, what would you do differently? Like, we want to make sure that we're addressing some of those. I'll speak to what we see our existing customers doing differently, how they are reimagining how they address their lead nurturing process with new leads. Then you have existing leads. So we get sub 2% conversion rates on our online lead gen, right? So think of, if you're a referral based, your business is more referral based, this is a little bit different, right? But you still want to know, no matter, you want to know who's actually in your pocketbook, who's in that CRM, because ultimately there is inherent value to knowing more about them, whether you are actively helping them buy or sell a home, get a mortgage, refinance, or heck, as you think about the longevity, who wants access into these leads that you have? Who are the other partners that you work with, the adjacents? Those in real estate, we're seeing people with this context engine now. You mentioned, Robin, a few of those data points: life stage, kids in the household, income ranges, dwelling types. Those types of things are really important to maybe another partner of yours. And so we want those ideas to start percolating, because we're now seeing that stuff being incorporated so that my business, I can not only get smarter about the way we engage brand new leads, creating remarkable experiences for them as soon as they walk in through your digital storefront. Then you have those existing leads. So what we want to go through there is like, well, what if you knew when stuff happened in their life? So you may have tried to engage with them 6 to 12 plus months ago. Now we have all of these leads that are built up in our database. They're just collecting dust. And a lot of people, our database included, we have a database of about 80,000 contacts in there. And we were just like, they're dead, put them in the trash or put them in a pond. And maybe if we get a new agent, we bring them in, hey, you guys go work them and bring one back to the table, but go work tirelessly, wasting your time in hours on trying to figure out how to convert those and just dialing for dollars. Well, context helps you figure that out. So let's unpack that a little bit. And then I want to talk about what we're now seeing, especially for those that are in the real estate vertical. There's so much consolidation taking place. So now we're seeing people that, and our business included, is how do we take this asset, the 80,000 leads that we have in this database to date? How do we make sure that that is transferable? So how do I make sure that this database is generating more predictable cash flow, more predictable revenue? That's going to be the new and existing leads. We want to unlock the value there. Then it is, how do I make sure that if I handed this off to somebody else, they had the playbook, they knew who it was, they know exactly how accretive it is. So how, let's say I got a ton of move-up buyers in my database. Somebody who's already knows how to work that database might find more value in that than somebody else. And so we're starting to see the context layer that you're providing, the who behind these leads. We know the what, the clicks and everything, but we're seeing the who now. Yes. And now that's really helpful in discussions for if any of you are nearing an exit, or you're just like, I want to make sure that I am set up and I'm maximizing my enterprise value in the future. So let's go through each one of those. And then I also want to talk about the agentic experience, which is what we are now from a product standpoint. We're taking this context layer. How does that unlock? We're seeing such incredible advancements of what our product teams are now working on, is how do we now use that to make sure that these AI agents, these agentic workflows, are smarter than anything else that you've ever used in your life. And it's not just handicap based off of triggering off of that first party data. So Robin, you got to take whatever direction you want to start with. I like starting with this new lead ecosystem, quickly parlay into the gold in that age lead. And then we'll talk through those other two use cases. And by that time, I think we'll have questions, and then we can wrap this up and get people on with their day.
I love it. Well, yes, we keep saying context is king, right? It is the thing that is kind of going to make the entire engine work. So let's start with those new leads. You said something at the very beginning that was intriguing, which is, well, we would call them all anyway. And my first question would be like, well, how is that working for you?
Yeah. Well, we get closings, we get appointments set. It's great. And people like to tout that they got appointments set. But what we've been laser focused in on is how much effort did it take to get to that appointment? How much money, if we were using an AI agent, how many tokens? Now everybody's getting into a tokenized model. of understanding pricing. How many tokens did it take to get to that appointment set? And so historically, we had just worked new leads. They are priority number one. We want to make sure that we are engaging with those opportunities. We have our existing customers. That's also, 1A and 1B are kind of those two buckets. And then you have the nurture bucket. And that's where a lot of the money I spend on ISA teams, the money I spend on those AI agents really builds up as well.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that in many ways, it's not the problem, to your point, is not necessarily calling everyone. It is much more kind of the inefficiency or the ways in which you could use your time more effectively if you had more information about who the people are that you're calling. Now, sometimes you obviously get a lot of great information by calling them if they pick up or in some way interact with you. But the goal of having this additional context ahead of time is to be able to get more creative or more thoughtful about your various approaches and which levers are you going to pull. Mm-hmm. So if we make it really specific, I mean, I think, and this is where tell me which direction you want to go. But if we brought it down to an individual lead comes in, you have some basic information about it. If we started to pile on and kind of add additional context pieces, could you change what your script would be when you first reach out? And it's not saying like, okay, you might see, do they love dogs? I'm not suggesting you call and are saying like, hi, I see you love dogs. It's more being able to have things roll off your tongue that kind of insinuate that you have some, that you're building rapport. I think it's a rapport building tool, like using context to build rapport.
So I'll talk to how we're using AI agents in a lot of what we're doing. So how this has changed and how we approach things is the tone of that message, right? You have a professional tone. Think about if you're providing and building out a skill, or you're building out, those of you who are a little bit further on your AI journey, it's just more of how do you want this AI agent to look, feel, and sound? And so most people build AI agents in a box. They build them in hey, I want you to be an AI agent that knows how to work Zillow leads. Go get them. Or your real estate ISA. Go get them. Whereas now with agentic, the agentic workflows that are entering our workspace now, it is able to dynamically understand beforehand. It has more context. It's able to ingest this and be able, before it reaches out, or before it builds a email that workflow that we consistently put people in that are more static around, hey, I'm going to put them through a static workflow. Think dynamically, being able to execute on these things. Hey, I know that this person it's not only a Zillow lead, but this is somebody who has never bought a home before. And I know that. I'm not having to make a call, get on the horn with them, hope that they tell me the truth. Where we have the necessary data that you've accumulated, and being able to now understand that this person, they are actively renting, and it's just available when it comes in. So now I got my basic name, email, and phone, but I know that they're a renter. I know approximately their income range, so I can understand what inventory is most relevant to them. We see a lot now. I'm seeing a lot of great third-party tools that their agentic workflows are AI search. You're seeing a lot of AI search now coming up, where I can just now talk to, in real estate, it was, hey, I want a single family home, 250 to 350 price point in the Browndale Park neighborhood, right? You would have to enter that information in. Well, now these AI agents understand more about the lead, and they can recommend better products for them, better inventory, right? Better real estate for that person. And that personalization has, what it's done for us is it's already 4x'd the response rates, right? So that's how we're measuring things, is a 4x response rate on new leads. That's kind of aggregated across all the different lead sources that we have. Now that's new leads, right? We're getting those response rates coming in versus a benchmark. So that's how we've applied it in that context. Like, what we've done differently is not so much us, more of that resource that we're already subscribing to those AI agents. We're building those in-house, and it's now helping us build just better internal tools that optimize our entire workflow. So we're no longer adopting widgets. We're now able to use the context first that makes those widgets better. And a lot of that's you'll see this as we're continuing forward, is this context engine, the data that you give us. And Agent Legends now becoming that data provider for our clients. And we know that they're going out and getting these AIs, they're getting other solutions. Well, those solutions are good out of the box, right? They're good out of the box. Same with any AI chat that you're using, whatever you're using, it's good out of the box. But the more context you give it, the more powerful it is, and the better results you're going to see from it. And so that is how we now kind of, as you think about plussing up and leveling up that experience, that's really how we're approaching it, how we're applying it, and the results are now speaking for themselves. So you'll see people promoting, I got a listing of $2 million over here, and these success stories. But we always have to be mindful of is like, how much did that cost? What is your net on all of that? And so what we're really laser focused in is how do we, with usage costs ever increasing, is how do we help you just get smarter with that? And it all starts with like understanding these leads so you can personalize that experience each and every time that you're reaching out to them.
And personalizing it, to your point, from the first moment you're doing, say, kind of the chat build that you've done. Like anybody, like to your point, lots of people can build a chat, but if it doesn't have the underlying context that makes it very personalized, it can still sound quite generic or be in the tone that you built it in, not in the tone that would work for the end client. And I think that's the beauty of having some of these kind of data points that allow you to, again, have that context layer that just makes it sound more personal, more relatable to them, that is now possible with what we offer for you to then kind of offer to everyone.
Yes. Love it. All right. So let's move to those existing leads. That's where, as we think about product market fit for where we are really flexing our superpower, right? Where like our UVP is going to be in this existing leads. We are unlocking, like most people are chalking these leads up for dead. They're gone. We didn't have success with them. Your agents who tell you that they suck, right? I hear it all the time. It's stuff I don't think will ever go away. I think there's just a layer of it. And so as we're trying to shift this job to something else, I want to have you unpack for us a little bit more about, we always say we're going to help you mine the gold in the old, but really, how does this now look with agentic workflows for those existing leads? Kind of what's on the horizon, some of the stuff I want you to unpack with kind of the dynamically triggering with V2 of the identity graph. So kind of educating people on what we're having that's coming soon, which we're really excited to bring to market for real estate, because again, I'll use the game changer so burnt out, but it really is to be able to now have right person, right place, right time, and you're that engine behind it. So unpack that a little bit more for us.
Yeah. I mean, today, what is possible, I think when you have a context layer that you are consistently getting fresh data in, a lead that did not look like a strong lead 6 months ago, a year ago, there might be some shift in them. They went from being a renter to a homeowner, for example, or they suddenly had a kid or whatever it is. Or maybe it's not a big life triggering event, which I'll get to in a little bit. It may just be a combination of circumstances have changed where they suddenly look like a much more intent lead. And when you have that context layer always flowing underneath, I think of it sort of as this like ever flowing river. You kind of have that context, you have that context, and then you're able with agentic essentially on top of it to help identify, oh yeah, now this is a really strong lead. We use that with, building lead scores. That can be something. Somebody has a low lead score, and then the lead, score shifts. That can be a way. And coming very soon, we're also going to do it with actual triggered data, where essentially you could see Robin Spencer was a renter for a very long time. Oh, she just moved. Oh, she just bought a house, so we are going to be able to see some of those early triggers so you could catch somebody before I'm in the market.
Yep.
Being able to have those trigger moments where, oh, she just moved states. She's renting in a new state now. Oh, interesting. The other interesting thing, we have all the historical data. So what you could even track, I was out in California, moved back to Vermont, was renting. Oh, I used to have an address in Vermont. Isn't that interesting? I bet you could start to connect the dots there. And I think the combination with that historical data layer we have, the upcoming trigger data we suddenly have an even greater layer of X-ray vision for agents, for real estate agents to be able to use to really mine those existing relationships that they have or leads that they said were once dead. So that's just one example. I think there's a lot of different ones that one can understand once you really start to look at those existing leads, not as just dead in the water, but more sitting on kind of a bunch of information that it's just a matter of how you pull it out. So you can actually see the patterns in it. And I think that's what, what you really can bring to everyone.
How I equate that to our users and how they're viewing this, right? We get in this trap of new lead acquisition, right? That's the most costly lead that you have, right? I'm going to go out and buy more leads. Now, what you're explaining is more on that trigger leads. We get a lot of clients of ours that will buy trigger leads, which for those of you who aren't familiar, let's say that somebody fills out a mortgage application, right? That may be, once you click submit, that's going to get syndicated out to other people, and that's going to then you might get called, right? You're going to get called by all these people that you don't know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
How we approach that, what you're describing is this is a lead that you already procured. It's already in your system. They've opted in for your stuff. Now you just have, because if you don't have in your system that first party data, right? You're not having the click, the emails, the property views, which generally is what we go and chase. We're chasing that. You're now bringing that layer in. Now that's huge. That's so big. And you're not reaching out and saying, congrats on your baby. But I've seen some of our users that would say, well, we're friends on Facebook. Now we're tertiary friends. We're on that outer limit. Now I can find them on Facebook and maybe just find an excuse to reach out to them. But you were the ones that told me where to search first. And you have that all living in your database. Like, that is, when you think about your secret sauce as an operator and what sets you apart, there's a number of different things. A lot of people point towards customer service and they point towards I'm always available. Well, these little things also are like the ways in which you can be a ninja in how you approach those things. And that is what it's one thing to say it's cool, right? That was our thesis coming into this relationship. We've now been working with you guys for well over a year, but when you're starting to see the results that consistently are being generated, consistently, where it is predictable, think scalable and transferable. Those are the things that, like, any business owner, you need to be very sensitive to. This is the core of it at its heart. And it's just really, it's been that what you're describing, that trigger, that live feed, right? We have all of these integrations with our CRM partners, and we also have, lead sources too. So we'll unpack, a little bit more of that. I want to touch on just kind of, as we are now growing as Agent Legend, we started with just real estate teams, brokerages, mortgage brokerages, et cetera. But if you're on the lead gen side, maybe you're a marketing agency or maybe you're a lead provider in your own right, where you are sending your customers leads. We're now starting to see the conversations also shift to, hey, we want to be able to provide a better lead quality, a better quality lead, so that our customers convert more of them. And now guess what? If they're converting your leads at a higher click, you have an opportunity to increase your cost per lead because you're delivering more value. And so we're starting to see some of that shift as well. So let's dive into, like, again, how the other pieces of innovation that we're working on. So we've talked through the trigger data. Talk to us a little bit about those that, like, from a role play perspective. I want to have you educate us a little bit more on, like, the talk to your persona for those that are like, how do I train up my marketing team, my ISAs as well? So can you speak a little bit? I know this is kind of a curveball in a little bit, but something that we are also exploring to roll out to our users, and how that might look for them as well.
For sure. So this is actually one of my favorite kind of ways that I think it's where data got used in a different way than you maybe first intended it. But with the context layer we have, think all US consumers and 1,500 different traits about them, combined with the power of any LLM, really, to be able to do a more generative talk kind of human talk. If you combine those two together, you suddenly have one of the most interesting sales training tool for any of your agents. And so what we started to see was our clients take our data and really start to build that into training materials to be like, you want to talk, we have these 3 different core personas. We want you to learn how to talk to them differently. Or we have, we don't actually have a core persona, but we know we want to be able to, we know that certain ages buy it differently. So we want to train any new rep on specific data, actual demographic points. And so being able to use all of that data underneath, combined with essentially a generative AI technology underneath, and you can kind of do that with a lot of different formats. I know you guys are thinking about this, right? Put those two together, and suddenly you have, like, chat, like think of ChatGPT or Claude on turbo, because it has all this context. That's not just it making it up, but it being like, oh yeah, I want to talk to millennials who just had, their second kid. So they're probably thinking through a larger house. How should I talk to them? And you ask that question and it has all this context on all millennials. And it's able to say, well, have you considered da 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 da? Or most of them have this or whatever. And I think that type of information, and you can really cue it up, becomes a pretty.
We got to break this down a little bit more, because what we see a lot of is now there's technology out there that will analyze your call. Fireflies. Let's just use these examples of note takers and stuff. We see it in as sales coaches and team leaders. So this is more selfish. As we're thinking through when we bring on a new agent, or we're training up our existing agents, right? Hey, how do we improve our lead engagement strategy? How do we do that? And so let's go a little bit more granular. I think this is really important, because this is actual tangible stuff that, like, from a training and development standpoint, we see these platforms are like, hey, this is how you answered this question on this call. This is what Steve could have done better. And that might get reported up to that sales manager. And now, how do I take that? How do I now use your tool to enhance even that, to say, this is what you were doing before. Now let's give you, is it like a role play that I would log in with, or how should I be thinking about this how should I be thinking about that?
Let me try to break it down, and I'm going to ask you some questions and you can course correct me. So I imagine you have all of your leads and all of your customers in one single pane of glass, or some view where you can say, these are leads, these are customers.
Yep.
Step one would be, first, let's analyze all of those customers and find out, were there any clusters that kind of differentiate your customers? Do you basically have a type that you're always selling to or not? That'd be question one that I have. From there, so that's basically like a one-time analysis to better understand your customer set. From there, you say, great, we mostly sell to these types of people. That would be one way to do it. Let's say you don't really have clusters and you're like, I want to put enriched data. I want to saturate this set of customers and really understand more about them, because you want to find more people like them. So maybe you add in data points like number of people in the home, hobbies, different data points. So you have that, and you've basically fleshed out more information about your customers. And now you take all of that information and you essentially are able to chat with that kind of context about all of those customers and ask it a series of questions. And so it really comes alongside some of that recordings of the actual call. So it's not necessarily real-time coaching, but it's more about, how would I reach out to, here, I'll give this example. Let's say in your customer set, you have a bunch of people who are millennial dog owners who have children.
Now also, most of us, we get people from all walks of life, right?
Sure.
So how can this tool, I guess I guess it's not in real time. So it's more of, we would make sure we identify the top several groupings of
So I think step one would be to do it more as a kind of behind the scenes tool. So that part's not in real time, but that's in preparation for real time, right? So like, you look at your existing customers, you say, great, here's this dog owner with 2 kids and this size home. Here's how I talk to them. How should I talk to them? Like, it's really just dialoguing back and forth, and it's probably giving you interesting different ideas based on those data points. And then imagine, okay, bring that into a brand new lead. If you're going to enrich that new lead with this additional context, you now have basically worked out a script that you could have used with that person. So it's basically using it as this sandbox or training ground. So it's not just, okay, you could have done this differently on the call. You should have paused more. You should have said this instead. It's taking more contextual points to help inform how you're going to talk to the next lead coming in. It would be an
marketing. Does it help on my marketing efforts as well?
Yeah. So we see a lot of people end up taking this and saying, okay, I'm going to put this, here's the direct mail piece or the postcard I'm going to send out. Give me a critique on this postcard. Based
on remarketing. So we see a lot of folks that are retargeting on Meta or anything else. Can I do it?
Yeah. same concept, right? Because I think part of your retargeting is what are your creative campaigns? So
Exactly.
first, get feedback on your creative. And then you could even go so far as say, okay, help create a lookalike, find more people like this.
Yep.
But I think both of those can be true. We've found a lot of people, data is one facet of it. There's so much more around it. And so
Mm.
the interesting thing I think about where agents come in, the agentic component, context plus agentic can give you a lot more training ground to get the feedback on creative that you otherwise maybe wouldn't. You think this is really good creative and you've forgotten these 5 key components because you forgot that your client set is
Yeah.
actually
Got
kind
it.
of,
No,
does
no,
that?
no. These are, and this is where, Robin, I think for as we do our next ones, I think as we kind of maybe we bring to life of kind of what that looks like in real time. Maybe we demo some that for us, but we're
Fabulous.
starting to adopt it behind the scenes. Like for those that are all in on the data piece. And so where I want the rest of this conversation to go is why data is so important, like in its own right, of how that translates to um, company value and everything, and kind of where my background is more in that private equity space, understanding what's happening within real estate, even mortgage. Now you're starting to see consolidation taking place at an alarming rate. Um, Sales organizations are those that are adopting AI, great, go do that. Okay, make sure you adopt AI, find some efficiencies. But those that are adopting both the agentic workflows in correlation with this context layer, understanding humans, this is what, or understanding who you're talking to, right? Providing an exceptional experience, but not having to flush that out with great dialogue and scripting. All of that is what we have kind of unpacked here today in its own
Yeah.
right. Creating those remarkable customer experiences, giving your leads what they truly want
Yes.
versus let's hop on a call, the dial for dollars methodology, kind of those old school sales tactics are, at least in our purview, aren't as effective. And when I say effective, they're not as profitable anymore because consumers demand more. They know that you should know more about me. We all understand how many conversations have we had with our friends at the pool and just said, we were talking about a Chevy and I just got an ad for a Chevy. Well, that's part of that's a big piece of what we're talking about is the fact that we as consumers, we have opted in to give away our information to a certain extent for an exchange of some value, right? And what your company has done and why we subscribe to it is you have just aggregated that information and now you allow us to very in an affordable way, right? Being able to affordably filter that information to our users. It's like the most simplistic way to explain that. What is happening if you're in real estate is really the roll up strategy is already well in the works. And so you're seeing the big umbrellas, you're seeing Anywhere brands being acquired by Compass. That's the big domino. Recently, you had Remax getting acquired by Real. You also had EXP acquiring Next Home. Those are kind of the 3 ones. Most recently, there's been others as well. And so now you're seeing the alarm clocks of people there's 2 camps here is they all acquired these businesses for different reasons, but at the core of them, when you look into why they did them, right? They're all publicly traded, so you can go out and find out why they did them. A core piece of it is the data component, understanding that in real estate and mortgage, that is the first domino in terms of transactions, right? Buy a home. Now, what else do I need? So now they're looking at how do I unlock lifetime value? And so as we continue along, that is our focus is making sure that our customers know more about their database, their current customers, past customers. They're not living out of their phone anymore. It's in a centralized repository that information that somebody else is going to have value in. And so when it comes to a point when you are ready to exit, everybody exits their business. We all get put in the dang ground, for gosh sake. So we're all going to exit. You want to make sure that database is a core value proposition for somebody else to acquire. You can hand it over and they can go and generate those results. Yes, it matters that you have the purchase agreement. Yes, it matters that you have the inspection report of that property in there. Yes, you have them subscribe to your IDX feed. That is all data. Those are all things that really are beyond our purview. But if you don't do that, you should be doing that now, because that is an incredible amount of information and data. And guess what? Claude, those agentic workflows, they know how to digest that. So that's the first piece, and that's what they're kind of doing. But now you're bringing in, I know not the what, but I also know the who behind that what. So the who is what we're providing, right? We're providing, this is actually a father of 3 girls. He has a dog. He makes above 200,000 or whatever that income range is per year. They love to travel, and you get that information, which allows you as a business to either you're providing that value to that customer to sell them your goods and service, or you're able to sell that to somebody else and they can also benefit from the value of that lead. And so think about what you spend on a cost per lead basis. We add a little bit of a few pennies on top of that for the data enrichment on our end. That's just your one-time investment. We encourage you to do it like on our customers. It's just the new leads that they generate. Just add an additional fee on top of that, an additional cost for this enrichment. And then we have it plugged in perpetuity to make sure that we are signaling to you that things are changing for that lead as well. And that becomes your moat as a business owner. And that is really, as we are building out into the future, what Agent Legend is all about. All of the stuff that we deploy for our customers, the texts, the emails, the voicemails, the calls that we're now making, the direct mail pieces, all of that is the end widget. But really, it starts with this context engine. So I wanted to highlight that, just given, most of our client customers are seeing some of the new product that we're rolling out, the innovation that we're talking about. You're a critical piece of that, Robin. So I think today the goal is just to make sure that we get people to get on board with that concept and to know that, like, the earlier that you do, train's already leaving the station. And so we want to make sure that earlier that those customers do that, they're just set up for success into the future, and that all of those other investments you're making in your business, it can all start with us at the beginning, and kind of that first peg and first domino for everything else. Because the more information you have, the better all of it will transpire in the future.
Completely agree. I mean, just to underscore a few pieces, I think where you started at being like, consumers expect more now. Like, we have already kind of identified this version where you're going to have information about us. Use it well. And I think the people we want to work with are ones who have done it creatively, not creepily, creatively, to build rapport, to do the things that I think human to human connection is so great at, because you have the context and you have this competitive advantage that you are sitting on. And then to your point, as you start to think about what that means as your underlying asset, adding a couple of pennies to the actual cost ends up just being a part of your investment strategy. Like, that's how we have often been thinking about it, is like, you're already paying X number of dollars for a lead. Could you pay a few more pennies on top of it? You're paying less than a quarter at its like highest point, and like through you guys, much, much lower rate. So like in that scenario, I think it just becomes this X-ray vision that just can compound on itself.
100%. Yeah. So I think with that, Robin, we had really great attendance today. We had over 60 people, I think, on live. So I believe there's an appetite for obviously what we're talking about. We hope that we are conveying these principles clearly. If we're not, we're going to continue to do more of these. You'll see some communications rolling out. And then as we continue along, we kind of inkled towards some of the innovation that we're going to be rolling out. And now the partner that's really fueling a lot of this. And so really, Robin, we're so grateful for our partnership with you guys. Like, you guys have been tremendous for just the success of our customers, right, that are now using the product. They are obviously with us through some of the trials that we've been going through and making sure that we figure out the sweet spot for the solution that we have. And now, as you think about leaps and bounds with the agentic workflows, like, that's the next thing that now we are staffing up to make sure that we can make sure that we deliver on those. Because that's now, it's not the future, it's here. We're going away from generative AI to now just like fully autonomous workers in your business. And that's going to be the next piece that you're seeing, at least in our world, for our existing customers, which will be rolling out soon. So we're really excited to usher that new regime in as well.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I would love if people after this have questions to help us determine if there are parts they want to drill into, because I think the world of data and context And agentic is so vast and so broad. I feel like each of the conversations we had we could have pulled another thread and had like a whole 45-minute session on. So
yeah, we certainly will. We'll get this out to our existing database, and then we'll keep digging into these topics, and then we'll obviously be doing some of those demos as well with like, here's what it actually means in practice. We'll go from there. So Robin, thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah. And thank you all for taking time out of your day and tuning in live. So with that being said, guys, we'll let you on with your day. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.
Bye. See you guys.